In this video, we're going to start to cover skin weighting. So we've got our finalized rig here where it's all put together, but it's not attached to anything just yet here. So we're going to go ahead and skin weight this character, and let's go ahead and we're just going to grab all the pieces here. It's not my outliner. Outliner, and I'm going to find the mesh for body here, and I'll do some of the eyes and things like that separately because then I could be a little bit more specific with how they're being targeted. But grab the body, grab the hands here, legs, feet, and let's say the head. And I'm just going to grab the hips here and go up to skin, bind skin, smooth bind. I'm going to go to options and make sure I'm on joint hierarchy. So, I mean, really, if you just reset this to the default, this should be fine. Let's see. Oh, actually, no, we do want to change something. So, normalize weights. Change this from post to interactive. What this will do is basically when we're weighting something, we're going to tell a vertice to follow a joint a certain percentage. So it has a total of 100%, or 100%. It could follow any particular joint. So if it follows, if this point here is following the shoulder and the clavicle, we could, say 50-50, but we can't do 75-50 with that on. You don't want that. You'll get some weird things. You really want only a total of 100% assigned to any joint. So this will do it as we're painting it. If you leave it on post, it'll do it after, and it's hard to control how the weighting is being distributed when it's happening after. So anyway, with the mesh selected and the hip selected, I'm going to click apply here. And I don't know if I'm going to cover the whole skin weighting of this character in here. I think once you start to see the principle of it, it'll start to make sense, and you could apply that to any part. So here we get the default skin weighting, and that is pretty atrocious. Not good at all. So we're going to go in and start cleaning this up. Sometimes this will distribute okay. Other times, not so much. If you might get a decent fall off to start with, but usually either way, I will still go block this out. So actually, let me show you where I'm getting this tool from. If I go up to skin, and by the way, you need to do this with your mesh selected. So I'm going to paint weights on this skin mesh. So I'm going to go up to skin, edit smooth skin, paint skin weights tool. And with that, I could have gone to the options box to bring up this menu, which I need open. So let me reset my tool here so it has the defaults. Okay, so okay, there we go. I was wondering why I didn't turn black and white, so I need to have a joint selected here. But here I could see how the weighting is distributed. So white is going to be 100% weighted to any given part. Black is going to be not weighted at all, and anywhere in between is some percentage. And if you want to see the percentage, there's actually a little sample tool down here. You could sample any particular vertice and see what it is. The skin weighting only gets painted to the vertices. That's what the actual weighting is getting distributed to. So if you're painting in the face, nothing's going to happen here until you cross one of the vertice points. For how I like to work, I like to block everything out at first. So what I do is I grab the solid brush up here, and I start blocking out what goes to what. So here's the different settings. So I could set up the radius and the fall off. I tend not to want any fall off, and I don't usually mess with these. What I do is in my workspace over here, if I want to change the brush size, I could hold down the B key, and you see my icon changes. And now I can middle mouse drag. Whoops! If I actually hit middle mouse drag to increase. Why is that not working? Let's try that again. Oh, right. Okay. It's not middle mouse drag. It's just regular left click mouse drag. That's a little bit confusing because it's different from some of the other tools. But in here, if I just hold down B, now I could left mouse drag and change my brush size. And then if I hold down the U key, we see we have different features for add, smooth, replace, and scale. And those are the features down here. For the most part, I only use 3 of these. I rarely ever use scale. I usually use replace, add, and smooth. And so what these do is replace will replace whatever value is here with what you currently have. Add will add it on to whatever's there. So if I painted, let's make an easier number to say, if I painted 0.2 on here, it would replace whatever's here with 0.2, regardless of how much is weighted. So if it was weighted 100%, it would switch it down to 0.2%, or 20% or 0.2. If I clicked add, if this is already at 30%, and I add another 20, that would take it up to 50%. And each time I click and drag, so I could go 50%, 70%, 90%, up to 100%. And then smooth will kind of average it out. So all the things it's already weighted to, it'll start to try to evenly distribute that to a certain amount. And this is pretty much all we use. I don't tend to play with opacity because it's kind of the same as value. The only difference is if you're doing replace, you can, like if I wanted to replace but only up to 50%, but I want to feather it on, I could turn the opacity down and gradually increase up to 50%, but it won't ever go past 50% that way. You see how it kind of stopped changing color? But for the most part, I don't mess with that. I usually just always use value. And so here's the key in painting weights. I'm going to go ahead and just start working on this. So I could add weights, no problem. Adding weights is easy. I could also take them away. So if I go and turn this value down to 0.1 and paint here, actually you'll already see some of the glitches that are happening, but it takes it away. Now here's the issue. Where is it putting it? I don't know. I don't know that Maya really knows where it's putting it. It's just assigning it to, I don't know, this joint over here seems to have some skin weighting on it. We'll throw it over there. I don't know where it sucked down to the zeros. Well, that was the only thing that was skin weighted to, so I have no idea where to put these anymore, so I'm just going to shoot them down to the origin. So I tend to only add. I tend not to take away. I tend to go to the thing that I actually want to add it to and add it on. And that's why we're blocking all this out, because one, let's go look at the arms. That might be a good example. By the way, here's another way I could look at this. So I could also right-click on any of these joints that I see through X-ray mode and select influence, and it goes to that skin weighting. And so you can see here, this is kind of some weird skin weighting on there. Where is my form joint? I'm going to go ahead and increase my joint size so I can see it. So if I go up to display, animation, joint size. Oh, there we go, that's why. Let's turn that up. Okay, there's my form one. You can see how that's falling. I'm just looking around seeing if there's anything that's kind of not particularly expected for how I would think it should be distributed. Like here's an example. Like here's the left side clavicle, and it's got a bunch of weighting on the right side. If I didn't assume that, that would stay there until I did something with it. If I started smoothing on something over here, it might start distributing more weighting to the left side because these vertices are already weighted to it. So what I want to do is get rid of all that stuff. I don't want to have to play any guessing work with what's weighted to what. And the way I'll do that is I'll just start blocking everything out. Oh, come on. There we go. You don't have to click right on the joint. In this case, I could click on any of the pieces extending out from it, and it's still the same thing as doing the joint. I'm going to block this out and say, just do it all 100%. So it's going to look absolutely horrible if we try to move this character around, but it lets me know where all the skin weighting's at. And then I can start to distribute it out gradually from various pieces. And this is why we want interactive on, because if I had it still on post, I'd deselect my mesh and I'd come back and it would actually be different because it would normalize the weights as soon as I finished using the tool. So it would average everything out to 100%, and it might still have it all on the original joint it was attached to. and I don't want that. So actually, whoops, let's redo that, because here's the other thing. It sometimes does not do undo well. Okay, well, let's see if I can just get this on this joint here. Okay, phew. So actually, that's probably a good place for me to jump in here. So if you do get some areas that are just weird, or that happens and you just cannot paint onto it, you could always go select the vertices. So I'm going back into component mode here, and I'm going to select the vertices of my mesh. And if I go up to Window, General Editor, Component Editor, and find Smooth Skins, this will tell me everything that vertice is weighted to and what percentage. And we can see the total here is 100%. If your weights aren't normalized, sometimes a glitch happens when you're painting, and even though they're supposed to be normalized, they're not, and they're over 100%. I can just go in here and change these all to 1, and that'll kind of normalize them for me. But say like that all got sucked down like I did before when I did undo. I can come in here and just say, hey, you know what? Put these all on the shoulder joint. That's 100% on there. And if I go back and look at my model now, or you go to skin weights, and I look at the shoulder here, you can see that spot's weighted 100% to the shoulder. So that's another way to go do that. It's good for fine-tuning for things that you just really need to tweak specifically, or this paint weights is just not cutting it for some reason. But it's really tedious, so I still tend to block everything out using this, and then I'll come back to this, or come back to the component editor only if I need to. But I'd say 80-90% of the time I don't have to, and then even when I do, it's it's for like one little spot that's just giving me some guff. But let's go ahead and start blocking out this arm so I can kind of show you the overall process. But to start with, I'd always go through and just block this whole character out, and I'm just working my way up from the wrist. Alright, so that's all 100% to the shoulder. Also, this is why I use the solid brush, because if I'm using one that has feathering, then I don't know that anything inside this red circle is actually assigning itself to there. It could be 75% because it's right on the edge. So what I want, again, is to get rid of stuff like this where maybe there's just a little bit over there, and that's, when it's really light gray, it's kind of hard to see. So sometimes it could be like 0.01 influence over here, and as far as you can tell, it looks black to you. So doing this is a good way to kind of just start fresh. Maya tries to assign it for you. I just don't trust it, and I've had too many times where I'm trying to tweak something and it's just not working because there's some original default weighting somewhere that is just totally screwing with me, and I've found this has gotten me much better results and has been a whole lot faster as far as skin weighting. So we'll call we'll just work on the arm for right now. So I'd go do the same thing with the chest and all that if I wanted to. But for the most part, blocking things out to start with. So maybe I put a lot on the clavicle there to start with. But I could go in and start to clean that up. Maybe something more like that for starters. And I'll paint the fall off later. So okay, so let's focus on the elbow for now and forearm twist and all that stuff. So right now when I bend my arm, I get this nice hard edge. The hand's still staying behind. Let's actually go weight it some so we aren't completely distracted by it as we're testing this out. So again, just weighting the whole palm 100% to there. And if I go a little bit over, it's fine because I know I'm going to have to paint those still. When I get to those, I'll make sure not to go back over, but for now, whatever. And it just helps speed you up. Try not to be perfect the first time around, because it's like, I know I gotta go paint these. I paint over them, that's fine now. Then I come in, then I'll be careful. When I get in here, now I'll do the small brush because I'm on a finer tune part. So you can see I'm just trying to block out everything, either 100% or nothing, for the time being. And so you could pose your character too while you're doing this. So if you want to see how your skin weighting is going, you could start to put this in a position and go, is this working out, or do I need to tweak this some more? So, and a lot of time actually people will put animation on their rig just for doing this. So like some basic calisthenics of like torso twisting back and forth, arms going up, arms going down, arms going forward, arms going back. So, so it's really some basic stuff like, and a lot of time trying to do one motion at a time. So if something is breaking, you could identify it, because if you have him bend over and touch his toe, well, that's the torso going and the arm, potentially other parts too. So if something like a vertex is flying off because it's skin weighted weird, you can't localize it. You can't tell, is it on the head, is it on the chest? I can't tell because everything's moving. So, sometimes you just do arm up, arm forward, arm back, arm down, and they'll go through and make animations so they could just easily test out this rig for anytime they put something new on. So say like, a guy like this where you have a bunch of different clothing items, it becomes really easy to make sure that each one of those is working as well. So let's go ahead and finish up this arm here. So we've got our blocked out skin weighting. So, alright, so everything's 100% at least for the arm. And by the way, again, I would go through and do this whole thing before I go beyond this point. Just because you don't know if something has stray point somewhere. So, just good to have it. But I'm jumping ahead for the sake of you not having to watch me do all that, because once you see me do this part, it should be fairly repetitive. So now I'm going to start to paint fall off. And the temptation here is to use the smooth tool. And let me just show you what the smooth tool does again. So it's just averaging this out. Problem is, well, actually, here it's not going to be a problem, because here, because we've blocked it out, we know where everything's going. It's either already assigned to this joint, or it's assigned to this joint. There's only two. And when there's two, smoothing is not a problem, because I know it's taking away from this joint, because that's the only other place for it to go. So I could go through and start to smooth this out, and not such a big deal. What I don't like about smoothing is every time I do a pass, it's adding more and more on, and there's not a good way to control that. I tend to use this at the end for fine-tuning, and for the most part I try to do everything by doing replace or add to start with. So actually I'm going to go back and undo that. But for here, I'm going to leave it for here. It does all right. Two joints, not a problem. So what about up here, say the armpit? This starts to get a little bit tricky, because we have the shoulder lifting up some, we have the clavicle that's able to lift the arm up more, so this part's coming with the clavicle, there's a little bit weighted to the shoulder, but it still needs to follow the chest too. So now we're between three. So if I start smooth painting in here, I'm not sure which joint it's going to, or how much of each it's going to those joints. So usually this is where I'll use add, and add it in little increments, or do replace and just say, I'm going to add 25% in here, 10% in here, and just kind of play it by the numbers. And then once I get it mostly there, then I could use the smooth, because that will start to average it out enough to, I could test the different positions and see if I like it. But okay, I'm going to do less talking, more painting, so you guys can kind of see what's going on. I'm going to start down from the shoulder here, and you know what, I'm going to go ahead and raise this up so I can kind of see how bad it is to start with. And that's not great. And so again, this is why I would do the whole thing, so I don't have to watch this part and try to figure out, well, what's controlling that, because I can tell it's attached partly to the arm right now. So I'm going to go ahead and block this out. By the way, as I'm doing the body, you notice I'm only painting half. We can mirror skin weights, so much like building the skeleton, I don't recommend building either half unless you have a asymmetrical character. So if your mesh is symmetrical and you did a good job of putting your joints right in the center and making sure your character was built along the center line and it mirrors and all that, you should, with quotation marks, be able to mirror your weighting from one side to the other. There are times where it doesn't work, but majority of the time it does, and even when it doesn't, it's still not too bad to go try to clean it up. Okay, so let's go ahead and block this part out. And call this all hips down here. Okay. So we can see on the shoulder it's taking a little bit too much with the clavicle. So I'm going to go and make a smaller brush one, but I'm going to have it replace this with, say, 20% for right now. And I'm just feeling my way out right now. Okay, so 20% is good. Let's try 50. So that's a little bit better. And so we'll run with this for the moment and see how we feel. And you can see I'm kind of using my edge loops as kind of these overall guides for this for now. You know, it's still kind of a really weird armpit happening the way it stretches. You know, the armpits don't stretch out in there that way. So we'll have to figure out what the happy medium is for that, for when, you know, versus the arms down versus when it's up. But I'm going to add, let's say, 0.20 in there. So again, I'm only adding. I'm never subtracting. I'm not smoothing yet because I want to know where this weighting is going. You know, I'm specifically putting it on the clavicle right now as opposed to wherever it would go if I started smoothing. Even when it's only assigned to one or two joints, sometimes the smoothing gets an idea of its own and says, you know what, this joint's close. I'm going to throw just a little bit over here. And we, you know, you want to be able to control this stuff. You want to be able to keep an eye on it. So. Let's see. Well, we'll run with that for now. You know, I can smooth that out to a certain extent. Part of it is the, what is it? The latissimus isn't coming out here on the side, so this just looks weird. But this should come out some when the arm goes up like that. So, but again, we can deal with that and smoothing and you know, or adding on a small percentage later. Okay, so we need some fall off down here into the bicep. So I'm not going to do 100% on the bicep just yet. I'm gonna put, like, I don't know, let's say, you know, 20% should be good. So this area isn't doing the full amount of twisting, but the next section down here will be before we get to the elbow. So let's select that. See, it took 20% off. That's 100% on. That I'm happy with. And we want some fall off in here. So 3 edges is usually what you want to make any joint. So you want this side 100% for the most part to this side. So you're holding the volume of the upper arm. This side, this edge here, 100% to this side. So you're holding the volume of the forearm. And then the edge in between can be 100% to the elbow. So I'm going to go ahead and paint this up 100%. And you know, I could fudge this a little bit once I start testing it to see if I need to soften it a little bit. But for the most part, that's the theory. So we know this is all. Oh wait, torso. Oh right, I'm painting the torso. Is there no skin weighting there? Oh, geez. Huh. That's right. We've got... I need to step back a second. So, I totally forgot about this part. Usually when I build rigs, I separate out all the rigs that aren't part of the skin weighting. But for building this, for the quick answer, I parent them under there. They aren't... they shouldn't be skin weighted to this. So what I'm going to do is take them out of the skin weighting set. The way I'm going to do that is go to my outliner here and find my rig. No, that's my move all control. Do not touch. Find my arms. So I'm going to go up my spine here. Okay, there's my clavicle. And I'm going to unfold the FK and the IK rig on both arms. So I'm just shift clicking them so I can get all of each version. And that's an IK rig, FK rig, the other IK rig, other FK rig, and that looks like all the joints for them. I'm going to select my mesh, go up to Skin, Edit Smooth Skin, Remove Influences. And now this mesh is no longer skinned to those, so those shouldn't be an issue. Not only that, I'm just going to hide these so that I don't do that again. Okay, so those two rigs are hidden. And those two rigs are hidden. Okay, so now those joints are out of my way. Alright, let's double check my skin weight in my arm here. That's more like it. Okay, so no damage done there. Alright, so we're looking at the elbow, and it's 100% on each edge there. By the way, sometimes when you skin weight things, even though you grab the whole hierarchy, it may not always throw in all the joints that you told it to, or maybe you did rather than so the other way I could have got around that is I could select just the joints I wanted to skin to this, and told it select the joints. But in that case, I'd have to select every joint I wanted in the skinning group, and I'd have to say those, which is sometimes what you want, because there could be other joints that aren't for this. Like say you have prop attachment points for like backpacks and wristbands and all that stuff for this character. You want to omit those, then you could just select the joints that you actually want to skin to for the body. Just select the joints and get those in there. But if it misses any, or if you forget any, not only can you remove influences, so skin, edit smooth skin, remove influences, you can also add them. So just FYI. Okay, I know I'm all over the place, aren't I? So these two edges to the elbow, we're going to look back at the bicep and give it 50% of this edge, so we're half and half. So trim my value down to 0.5 here, and paint this middle edge. I need a slightly smaller brush, so I'm holding down B, left clicking and dragging. Okay, so let's start to look at how that fall off is turning out. And for the most part, that looks fine. It's good enough for a game model. We get a nice. Let's look at it in wireframe, not X-ray. Wireframe. So now you can see that we're getting, this edge is the only one kind of going in between, where this is staying put and this is staying put too. And maybe we'll soften the edges up just a little bit in between there, maybe not on the outside but on the inside. But we can do that with smoothing. So, but not till after we block everything else out. That'll be kind of a cleanup pass. All right. Let's see. Let's look at what we got here. All right. So I'm going to twist my wrist here so I can see how my fall off is coming. And that looks painful right there. So I'm going to go ahead and clean that up some. And to do that, I'm going to tell it, I'm going to start with 0.1, so 10%. Nope, I want more. 0.2. We'll go 0.3. Alright, that's not too bad. And no, I don't want it twisting that much up there. I think this will be fine. I think it looks worse than it actually is because I'm looking at wireframe. But when I turn that off, that looks okay. So now we got a nice gradual twist happening in our arm, and that's again why we put this joint in here, because you see the volume stays nice and maintained as we're doing that. Okay, so we got elbow twisting. Let's focus on the shoulder here a little bit more. Yeah, that looks not right at all. But I think it's just because we need a little bit more coming out here. So I'm going to give it 0.1. So that looks a little bit better. Trying to remember what I put here. Is this what, 0.5? Oh, I'm going to go I just did 0.1, right? I'll try 0.2, and if that isn't good, I'll do 0.3. No, 0.2 looks okay. Then maybe I'll do 0.1 down here. And you can see, a vert here and there might be a little bit too much, but for the most part, this is looking all right. So you can see we're taking a little bit too much of the neck there. I missed a spot, so I'm going to go assign this to the neck. And this is why I block it all out first, so I don't have to deal with that kind of stuff. But this is, like I said, this is the quick version. So right there, that might be a little bit much, so I'm going to assign a little bit more back to the clavicle. So I'm going to click my little sample tool down here and sample that vertice. So I got it on 0.5 for the clavicle, and I'm going to give it 0.6 so it isn't collapsing so much. And maybe take a little bit more out of the shoulder and give it to the clavicle. Putting 0.1 on there. This isn't such quite a harsh point right there. Alright, so that's probably about as high as you could lift your arm without starting to use your clavicle. I see this all the time. I guarantee you cannot do that. Maybe you could while lifting your clavicle, but a lot of that motion after this point happens here. So it's in playing with that to see if that's working out the way that you want. So I'm going to add a little bit more in here into the clavicle. I'm going to give this 0.2. So a little bit more happy with that overall shape. And then I'm going to kind of do similar in here in the up here by the neck. Give this like 0.2. You notice I'm sticking around with like tenths of a unit, so 0.1, 0.2, 0.3, not 0.2, 0.5 just yet. It's just a little bit easier to keep track of at the moment. I'm going to say this is more the chest than the neck because I don't want the neck moving and yanking the stuff down. So let's see. That's up a little bit high. So that's going up the way I want. That's a little bit much. Let me sample that. Try 0.9. See if that's, yeah, that looks more like the shape I want. This is what, 0.1, 0.2, so I'll go to 0.3. And then 0.1 the next ring in. Okay, so that's a little bit more natural in shape. So again, this is the same principle I'd use across the whole body. We're focusing on the arm at first. We could always pose this as we're doing this, and because we made it so we could zero everything out, we can pose it in different poses and make sure to always put it back to where it was before. But right now we got a pretty good arm. So concept would be the same for the fingers, for the spine, for the legs, any of this. This isn't any different. I'm just kind of tackling it at micro scale. So let's call that arm good. But now we still have this other arm that is probably garbage as far as the weight. Yeah, that's not great. It weighted better than the other side did, but let's go ahead and mirror weights. So go ahead and skin, edit smooth skin, copy skin weights. and I'm going to do closest point on surface. And so there's some different, or not copy skin weights, mirror skin weights. Copy skin weights is for copying skin weights from one model to the other, which is good if you have like an old version or something like that. That works. Where is my menu? There we go. Okay, so this is kind of like mirroring the skeleton. So we want it to go across YZ, this plane right here. So YZ. We want to go from positive to negative, positive on the grid to negative on the grid. That's correct. By the way, you notice I'm painting the left side. Probably should have mentioned this earlier. I would recommend painting the left side too. You do have the option to turn this off, and in theory it should mirror from the negative to the positive. I don't always have the best of luck with that, so I almost always paint on the left side. For some reason, just sometimes it will not mirror the other way. But for the most part, the default setting should be if you have the right mirror access. So I'm going to go ahead and hit mirror. And by the way, there's a couple of things here. If you want to be real specific, you can say closest joint, 1-to-1, or label. If things aren't mirroring well, there's actually labels you could assign to your joints. So if I go in the attribute editor here, and we scroll down, there's joint labeling. You can assign a side default name, or you can go down here to, where is it? Down here to other and assign your own name. And that way it'll know, hey, this is the left side, here's the right side. Go ahead and mirror those. But I think the default settings should be fine, so we're going to go ahead and select our mesh, click apply. And let's look, that hand will still be garbage, but let's lift up the shoulder, that'll really tell us. There we go. So you can see we could just easily paint one side or the other. It's not a big deal to go do that, and it saves half our time. So if we start looking at center stuff, it's mirrored nicely. I didn't paint it like that. Smoothing. So once you've got it, most of it, I do this before the mirroring. Go in here and oops, I need to have my mesh selected, or there's nothing to paint weights on. Let's look at the elbow here. So if I just decide I want to smooth this a little bit, this is a fine time to do it, because even if it isn't perfect, it's going to be close enough, and gets a little bit softer. Grab the bicep, do the same thing. So we don't have so much of this like paper shell kind of look happening to it, and it rounds out a little bit more. So just a little bit of that can go a long ways, but don't start out with it because you don't know where it's assigning the weight to. So in here, I'm just going to kind of smooth this out so it'll even this out a little bit more. And again, I've assigned all the weights in here, so I got a good idea where they're going to. And it's just going to adjust a little bit, not a ton. So I could turn the opacity down to if this is too much smoothing that's happening per pass for me. Smooth that clavicle up. But just remember, smoothing is like the icing on the cake. It's the last step. It's not the first thing. It's the very last thing. It's just kind of the polish pass. And I could kind of make these edges that are showing up a little less harsh with that. But that's skin weighting. So you do the same thing for the legs, the head, all that. Really block it out. It's going to be a little bit trickier on the face because you kind of have to eyeball it and then slowly soften it up, slowly soften it up. But the key to remember is start out by adding. So block it out all 100%. Think of this like painting. You're going to block out with your harsh colors, and then you're going to start to soften them up. Blur them together, but not literally blur them together, but do it by adding iterations of grayscale in there as you're going. And then after you do all that, you could put some water on your brush and blur it a little bit with the smooth. But that should get you skin weighting, and that's the ideas of this. I'll have a finished version of this for you guys to check out so you can see the skin weighting for. Oh, actually, no. Let me stop myself. So we should go back to copy weights, because if I was doing this and I get this body done, the hell I want to go and spend more time doing it on other parts. You know, here's a t-shirt. Here's another t-shirt. Here's a suit jacket. So we can copy weights from one thing to the other. So we're going to get in some issues, and here's one thing I typically do, and I haven't done on this guy because he's already done. He's all chopped up for games so that you could swap out, this hand for baseball glove, or swap out the chest for the torso with the suit on it. Swap out these legs for the legs with the pants on them instead. And the feet still stay there. So you could, it's for clothing menus. Like when you're dressing your character in a game, this is how they do it. It's chopped up, which makes not for great copy weights, especially when you see how much farther the suit goes down compared to where this torso is. So a lot of the time when I'm doing this, I will make a duplicate skin of this guy and combine all this so it's all one mesh again, paint it all as one mesh, and then after that I'm happy with that, I'll go and copy weights onto my broken up one. And that's really easy because you don't have to go do it again. You just say, hey, overall mesh, copy your weights onto this mesh, and the seams work out just right because everything lines up 100%. And then when you get to clothing like this, which doesn't line up 100%, it still works out for the most part. You'll get 90% of your weighting. You'll still have to go and clean it up, but it's a whole lot faster. Let's copy a suit over the skin from this torso onto the suit. So I'm going to grab my target mesh first, so the thing that has the weighting that I want to get, and then, grab my source mesh first, and then grab my target mesh. So the torso we just painted is the thing that we have weights on. This guy is, I don't think this is even skin weighted yet. So I'm going to skin him. I'm going to grab these guys again, make sure they're not part of the skin set. Grabbing the FK and the IK rigs again. Ideally, it might be easier to, say, not have these parented in the rig and have them parent constrained to follow the clavicle, but that would be, far too hard. Sarcastic. Well, you wouldn't want to do that directly. You want to copy the clavicle too in that case. So, because that joint would be driven by IK and the control. Make a duplicate clavicle and then parent constrain that clavicle to follow, the chest the same way the regular clavicle does. And that way you could have these separated out from the skinning skeleton, but not part of there. But I'm doing it the hard way now. Or, if we don't have a game rig and this is only staying in our scene, who cares? Okay, so FK and IK rig are not part of this rig anymore. Let's check out the default skin weighting. It's probably not great. Yeah, it's okay. You can see the arms collapsing some if we turn off our base layer. That's not a great arm. We could do better. See how the shoulder looks. Yeah, same issue there. So we're gonna grab. I can see my skin through here. So by the way, if you're doing this in scene, you'd hide that base mesh when you switch over to the suit. So grab our source mesh, target mesh, skin, edit smooth skin, copy skin weights, and we want to go to the options. I'll go ahead and reset it to the defaults. So closest point on surface is a good one. Let's start by joint name. So that's the first thing we want to look at. So match the weighting to whatever the name of the joint is that's weighting that other piece of geometry. Let's say 1-to-1 is next, so as much as you can, line it up. And then after that, we'll say closest joint. And let's go ahead and click apply. And it says the weights were copied. And let's see how that turned out. There we go. So you can see not perfect, but better than what we were getting a second ago. And will save us a lot of time on skin weighting. So that arm's already better. The only thing is we probably, oh no, we even have stuff for hands. Great. So yeah, that's the only thing different than what I'd recommend. I'd recommend having a whole body version. Whenever I have a chopped up character like this, I usually chopped up character where I know I have different clothing and outfits. In this case, I'll build one whole body mesh and then keep copying the weights over onto all the different costumes and outfits they have. But if you have one character, it doesn't really matter. Yeah, you could, just you're gonna have to paint one version to start with anyway. But in a case like this where you have multiple outfits, that'll save you a lot of time. Or say you do have a body under here and you say, I don't know, have a wristband or something like that. You can just copy the skin weights off your body onto your wristband. So a lot of applications for that. And a lot of little tweaks you do. And again, we also have the component editor, so if you have something that's either is giving you guff or you just need to make sure it's perfect, or say you keep weighting this and like the chest keeps getting mixed up in the arm and you keep bringing it up and like, why is my chest part of this? Maybe you actually caught it with your brush, but every time you try to remove it, it's just not happening. Go into component mode, select the vertices that are giving you a problem, go to Window, General Editor, Component Editor, go to the Smooth Skin tabs, and then you just look for, okay, is there anything here in the chest that's going to the arm? Well, I don't want that, and then select those and then zero it out. I'll destroy my skin weighting here so you can see. So zero it out, and there went clavicle because there's no skin weighting to it anymore. But I'm going to go ahead and see if I can't undo that. Doesn't matter. I'll show you. I'll give you guys a copy of this file finished eventually. But that is how you do skin weighting, and just continue with those same methods all the way through. All right. See you next lesson.